Today is finally the day to install the full tune and do the PCM swap on the Rubicon 392. The way that we have this Rubicon 392 set up right now, there are a few things we have to do before we can jump right in. The first thing out of all that would be to go back and watch part 1 of this video. I went over everything that came in the box for the Diablosport Trinity 2 EX Platinum tune and the actual PCM swap process. But today we're going to dive right in on how to actually do it. If you're like me and already have the JL Taser Mini installed, this is what we need to do first. And if you don't have the JL Taser already installed, this is a step that you get to skip. So what we'll need to do is put the Jeep in the run position. Of course, don't put your foot on the brake. We'll see everything light up and come on. Now what you'll need to do is go down to setting number 7, which is usually going to be for your audio. You'll hold down the left arrow, and if you have the Taser, you'll be familiar with this, and you'll use the cancel button to go through. We can go through all the options, and we're going to go all the way over to unmarry. Then we'll click unmarry, and it's going through the unmarrying process right now. It will do a countdown, and then it's going to go through its first reboot. After that's done, what we'll need to do is hold down the arrow again, scroll through, and you'll want to go to reboot, full reboot. Click OK, and it's going to start the countdown, which does take a while. It says the timer is 150 seconds. Sometimes it's not that long. A lot of stuff's going to pop up on the screen. It'll turn back off. What it's doing is literally unlearning the device, and you just got to let it count down. And you can see this is what the countdown actually looks like on your screen. It'll do a full countdown until it has completely rebooted. And now our screen has came back on right here. We're going to let all that pull back up like normal. So all that's done, and on my screen right here, it is saying no device, and that's what you want it to say, is no device right there for your audio section. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll back down to our normal settings, and we're going to run it through a couple sleep cycles. So it's in the run position now. You're going to want to turn it off. You'll want to open the door, shut your door, and wait for everything in the vehicle to go black. So running it through the 2 sleep cycles is actually what's going to solidify it being unmarried. Now for this situation, since we are downloading a lot of information off of the factory PCM, I do want to make sure everything's working correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and start it up. I'm not going to move it anywhere. Start it up, let it run and idle for just a second, and then we'll shut it back off and carry on. So now that that's all done, we know it is working properly, we'll go ahead and unhook the JL Taser Mini. And if you don't remember from installing it, it's going to be right here. So this is essentially just a bypass module, and all you'll need to do is just unplug it. And then once you've got it unplugged, you'll just set it aside, and we can get started on the first piece of our actual Diablosport Trinity tune. So we'll grab the provided bypass module, go ahead and install it the exact same way that you just uninstalled the JL Taser Mini. Now the next part here is to grab your Diablosport Trinity tuner, its actual module itself. You'll grab that right there. And the other thing you'll need is the actual OBD2 connector, and of course all that's provided as well. And of course, if you haven't watched my previous video on how to update this and get it all ready for this actual process, make sure you go back and watch it. But for now, we can go plug this in. You will plug this into your OBD2, and then you can see this is all lit up. And what we will do now is put the Jeep in the run position. Then after everything turns on, we'll click tuning. And you can tell it's gathering the information from the factory PCM. A lot of stuff may actually turn on to your screen. Don't worry about it. It says turn ignition off. And press the screen to continue. Then put it in the run position. Press the screen to continue. Factory data retrieved. Please install the unlocked ECU and contact customer service. Please press OK to continue. We'll click continue. And it's going to actually download the information right now. So now that part is all done. We're going to turn the vehicle back off and move on to the next step. Now this next step could be the most straightforward step in the process, but it's probably the most difficult just because of the placement on this PCM. So as you can see, the factory placement of the PCM is going to make it really tough, to say the least. So I'm not exactly sure what I should do to make this any easier. Maybe unbolt this, I'm not really sure. But we're going to find out real quick, and we're going to try to make it simple and easy. But for now, what we need to do is disconnect the battery. That way we don't have any power running to the PCM. And we will just put this over the terminal. That way it can't touch whenever we're moving all this around. Now moving beyond that, you'll use the same 10mm socket. And I'm actually going to see if disconnecting these two bolts right here, there's one on this side and one on this side, will make it any easier to access this PCM. It seems like that's all that's holding it in, so that could make it quite a bit easier. So for now, to at least make it easier to get these nuts off, then we can try to figure out where we can get the room to unplug these. So now, actually, before I loosen up this bottom one right down here, I'm actually going to see if I can unplug it. There is a friction connection down here on the bottom that you just pull it up. It's like a rubber bushing holding this a little bit tighter. So maybe moving that around will give us just enough room to do what we need to do. Finally got it. This thing was difficult to get out. There's no room to move, and this actual connector right here broke, and I had to put it back together while it was still on it. So now I'm just going to loosen up this last bolt right here and attach the new PCM on it just like this. And now we will get our new PCM out. And you'll line up the new cleaned up one that they've sent out. We're going to put this one back in the box. Well, that was way easier. And you'll want to be sure to reattach your ground once you get that done. That part is all done. We'll put it in the run position. Let it freak out for a minute. Then we'll go to tuning. Same message. I'm skipping it. I'm just going to go to tune vehicle. We have options for the 91, performance crawl, modify stock tune, or Diablo tune. Going with the Diablo tune. Continue to begin reading your vehicle's factory data. Continue. Now it says turn ignition off. Press to continue. Ignition on. Then it asks, would you like to install tune as is, or would you like to customize the tune by modifying the adjustable parameters? Let's click customize. Let's see, tires. Let's go to 37-inch tires because we have 38s, but if you measure the true size, they're actually about 37.25. So let's take these to 37-inch, 37.25. And since I don't have the JL Taser now, I'm going to use this for the tire size. And really all I want to use for the JL Taser is just the 2-wheel drive. Now we'll turn it off. Press to continue. On. So we can change the TPMS threshold. I run it really low. I always run at 30 pounds, but I want the threshold to be literally like, I don't want the lights to come on. I won't go below 10 PSI because I don't have bead locks on this one. So we'll set it at 10. Perfect. Limiters. Here's a big thing. Speed limiter. Take that thing on up. 190. It's 2 selections for speed limiter mile per hour. Let's see. Raise vehicles top speed limiter. Raise vehicles top speed limiter and 4-wheel low. Oh, very nice. 4-wheel low, not a big deal, but I want to be able to go as fast as we can. Let's see. Rev limiter in drive. Let's see. It does red line. We got 7,000 RPMs, but let's take it to 6,600. Rev limiter in neutral. Raise the vehicle's RPM rev limiter when the vehicle is in neutral. So we raised it by 600 RPMs. I think it was tapping out at 4,000. Now it may let me go to 4,600. That's not impressive. I was actually hoping I could rev up to about 6,000 RPMs whenever it was in park or neutral or something like that. Anyway, let's save that. Throttle booster. Increase the vehicle's throttle sensitivity settings. Let's see what the max is. Whoa. So we'll go up to 20. So let's increase it by... Let's increase it to 10 and see how that feels for now. Fans. Yeah, that's fine for the actual temperature. The fans work great for now. We don't need to change the fuel. We don't need to change the spark. Daytime running lights. Let's see. Euro fender. Okay, we'll leave that for now. Then idle. Idle and drive RPM. Idle and neutral or park. I don't need to worry about that. AC off. Yeah, the idle RPM's fine the way it is right now. Let's click install. So we're changing the tire size to 37.25, TPMS alert, Diablo tune, 190 mile an hour speed limiter, 190 mile an hour speed limiter, 6,600 RPM limiter and drive. I'm going to change the limiter higher if I can. Oh no, I couldn't change it. So it is going to be maxed out at 6,600. So we'll click install. Everything we just went over, and we'll increase. We're doing the throttle booster at 10% and the target fan temperature at 205 versus it being around 215, 220. Accept and install. It did not ask me about the transmission tune. I thought it was going to ask me about that, but maybe it will later. Turn ignition off. Continue. Turn ignition on. Continue. Brake pedal relearn is required. Please ensure brake pedal is released and press continue. Continue. Your vehicle has been successfully tuned. Press continue to return to the main menu. Looks looks like we're good. I'm gonna go make sure everything's put up and we'll take it down the road and make sure it works correctly. All right, guys, so I've already taken it on its maiden voyage just to test it out, and I can say I definitely had some issues. So first of all, I've got my gauges set up. Everything is really easy to use, and of course, you know, the way that this is set up, it is extremely user-friendly, but there are some things you got to get used to. Of course, you've got your gauges, you've got access to tuning, you've got performance tests, diagnostics, settings, and EAS, which I'm not sure what it actually is, but apparently I don't have access to that. The gauges are set up pretty nice. The tuning's pretty easy to do. You do want to have the vehicle off if you are trying to tune it. One of the biggest issues I ran into, and I've ran into this before in the 392, is my screen went to what a screen would be in a Grand Cherokee or maybe just a base Wrangler. It was actually really annoying. It happened to me once before whenever the battery had died and I used the Jeep to tow the motorcycle out to Tacoma off-road for an off-road test. So in that video, you guys would have seen the same thing. I guess it's where I disconnected the battery and went back to it. For some reason, all of this was messed up. I didn't have access to the backup camera. Off-Road Plus wasn't working correctly. Didn't have any off-road pages. I didn't have access to literally anything. So I let it sit for a little bit longer, just like last time, and sure enough, it works. Let's just check to be sure. Whenever I press Off-Road Plus down here, there we go. And now it's all back to normal. I'm not sure why it was so messed up for a little while. It literally just wouldn't do anything. It was so strange, but I'm glad to see that that's working correctly. Some of the things I did adjust on my little trip, I actually ended up adjusting the tire size. That way I could get the speedometer as close as possible. I ended up getting it about 1 mile an hour off, and the Jeep shows that it's going 1 mile an hour or half a mile an hour faster than what it actually is. And that's comparing it to GPS. So I'd say that's pretty spot on. Aside from that, I did change my rev limiter, so we actually are able to rev quite a bit higher whenever we're in neutral. Pretty impressive. And then we also increased the top speed. But now that we have everything set up and working correctly, let's go ahead and see if the JL Taser is going to affect any of this. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, nobody has given me a clear answer as to whether this will actually work. People from Diablo say it might. People from the JL Taser company say that it might. But nobody's giving me a clear answer. So I'm not really sure. What I do think is I don't believe we can do any extra tunes without this module in. So each time you want to do a new tune, you probably do need to plug this back in and unmarry the JL Taser. But I want to go ahead and test it out for you guys to see if it actually works or if it fries at all. So let's go through the marrying procedure. Now, of course, I've already showed it to you guys before. I did get a LED taillight warning light saying the LED light was out. Same thing we got whenever we originally installed the Oracle lights in the back. So this is what I used to clear that last time. Hopefully we can use that again. But the main thing that I want to be able to use on this is the ability to be able to put the Rubicon 392 into two-wheel drive. I almost always drive this thing in two-wheel drive. It's so much more fun. It's a better experience. So I'm wanting to still be able to do that. So all of that seems to be good. Let's start it up and see how everything talks to each other. So all of it seems to be communicating right off perfectly well. We have no codes. I just switched it into forced rear-wheel drive. All of my settings actually showed up in the JL Taser that I had preset in the Diablo tune. So let's take it for a drive, see how it all works together, and make sure it feels right. So just setting off here, I've got the throttle sensitivity set at 20. So it is making a little bit of a difference in normal drive. I would say it probably feels like maybe off-road plus mode in normal drive mode. And then whenever you go to off-road plus, it doesn't really change any. So that's basically how I feel about that. In terms of the pickup, in terms of the transmission shift points, I honestly feel like the transmission shift points are about the same. I don't think those have changed any. In off-road plus, it feels about the same. What does feel a little bit different is how quick the power is there whenever you get on the throttle. That has changed a little bit. It's a little bit more responsive. The gauges are nice to look at. It's cool to be able to see a few different metrics that you're not able to see on your actual screen right here. Aside from that, the JL Taser seems to be working pretty well. I was really worried about not being able to use the JL Taser. Let's see. Feels any quicker. It seems like it just gets on the power a bit quicker, so I can't really feel more power. But it's just a basic slap-in tune, so this isn't a custom tune. This is just an out-of-the-box tune. I don't think it really changed the performance of the vehicle, hardly any. It's just a bit more responsive, and you really get to narrow in on a lot of the things you want to customize. So like I said before, we've got the speed limiter change, so don't have to worry about the Jeep topping out at 99. Aside from that, the rev limiters change too. But to be honest, I don't feel a crazy difference. I don't feel quite a bit more power. Of course, it's not a turbocharged or a supercharged motor, so these tunes can only do so much. And just so you guys get a chance to hear it, the vehicle's in park right now, and I'm gonna rev it a couple times. That way you can see the difference in the sound with the rev limiter raised. So it used to go right there, right to about 4, and now it goes quite a bit higher. And you guys have heard my actual Jeep, whenever I'm in off-road plus in first gear, usually whenever I get up to about 2500 and let off of it, it pops and burbles like crazy, but it's not doing it now. So for whatever reason, it does not pop and burble. I've got, let's take it out of off-road plus. Now we can see it does not pop and burble. Not sure what would get it to quit popping and burbling, but it does not. So guess that's something we'll focus on with the custom tune. So I am going to show you guys what it sounds like going down the road and actually getting on it a little bit. It does sound a little bit different. The shifts seem to be a bit smoother. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with why it's not really popping, but this is it, 2-wheel drive. We'll start in first gear and just rip on it for a couple gears. And now I'll show you guys what I'm talking about it just not really popping near as loud as it was. So usually in off-road plus, we would get something crazy out of that. Now it just kind of doesn't really do anything. So here's third gear, we'll get it up to 2500 RPMs. And of course that's me tapping the throttle, but in first gear it just doesn't seem to react to it at all. So that was second and third, and second it still does it, and we'll hear it in first. It just literally does not pop. Extremely minimal for first gear. I'm not sure what that tune has changed for it not to pop as much, but it does feel like it's a little bit more torquey. After getting on it a few more times, I can feel a little bit of a difference in the power. It's just not very noticeable. I mean, you'd really have to pay attention to notice it. So now it is starting to rain. I'm actually going to stomp on it in rear wheel drive, traction control off, and see if that messes us up any. Whoa. It definitely hooks up and goes even in 2-wheel drive, which is pretty crazy. I am kind of impressed now, getting on it a little bit more. In 2-wheel drive, I can feel more of a difference. In standard 4-wheel drive, I didn't really tell that much of a difference. And here is just me punching on it, and it's in third gear right now. And it just lights the tires up. No way to hook up at all. So I'll do that again. Right now we're in second gear, and we'll just completely punch on it, 2-wheel drive, traction control off. And it just roasts the tires off. It's not hooking up like that. And this right here is why I love 2-wheel drive so much. Oh, police. Anyway, we'll stomp on it. Stomp on it again. No traction. Won't hook up in the rain. Now I've switched over to all-wheel drive and we're going about the same speed, so I'm just going to punch it. No problems with hooking up like that. Just doesn't feel as aggressive. Yeah, it hooks up way better, but just doesn't feel as good. And we are back in 2-wheel drive here, and we'll just thromp it. Yeah, that's pretty spicy, I'll say that. Now, same thing, 2-wheel drive, we'll just punch it. Yeah, it turns the whole car sideways. So much more fun than all-wheel drive. Glad that the JL Taser Mini does in fact work with the Diablosport Trinity tune. The PCM swap and all, the JL Taser, the bypass module still works. So in summary, to wrap it all up, it really comes down to, is it worth it? And it depends on what kind of customer you are. If you're like me and you plan on adding a bunch of crazy stuff in the future and you need that PCM unlocked, there's not many other ways to do it. Anytime that you're tuning a vehicle, it can be tricky and you're going to run into some software issues, just like I did today. With that being said, if you're with a trusted company like Holley, like Diablosport, it gives you a little bit more confidence to be able to approach it however you need to, because they've had people go through pretty much every situation. So if you run into something crazy, they can probably walk you through it. That being said, if you're doing the tune just for the power, you don't plan on adding much more, or if you plan on adding things that don't really need a tune to fix them, then I really wouldn't do it. It doesn't make sense to pay the $800, $900, or $1,500 to get your tune done, and it's just a PCM tune that gives you a little bit more power, maybe 20 horsepower. You don't really feel much of a difference, and it changes the way it drives. You may run into issues, and you're definitely going to lose your manufacturer warranty. So in that situation, it doesn't make sense, but for mine, it does. Now, the JL Taser worked perfectly and flawlessly with the tune, so I was really pleased with that. I didn't want to lose any of the capabilities that the JL Taser offered, and I'm glad that it all worked out. You just have to walk through the right process like I did today. Even though it's time consuming, if you do it the right way, it'll all work out just fine. Now, of course, there's a link down in the description to show you guys pretty much all the stuff that I've installed today and a bunch of other stuff in the past. And be sure to stay tuned. We have some pretty awesome stuff coming from Metal Cloak on this Jeep Rubicon 392 extremely soon. And I haven't told you guys yet, but I might have bought something else. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see next. But until then, Godspeed.